I gave myself a design challenge to build a TV stand for myself using only these 3 pieces of wood and nothing else. The 2 long pieces are cedar stair treads from a 100-year-old house that was being torn down. The rectangle is beautifully aromatic Port Orford cedar I've had for about a year now, left over from a previous video. The stair treads are covered in holes and imperfections from their long life, even a gift from a local bird. The plan is to replace this lackluster setup and deal with some of the larger pieces of wood I've had in my shop. I also find, to work around some roadblocks, I get more creative. The design started on sticky notes, then I moved to SketchUp where I made a giant duck mouth, a gigantic Oreo, and a magic trick. I wasn't happy with any of these, and I wanted to utilize more of the corner space, so I decided to try and wrap around the corner. Instead of modeling it, I wanted to see it in real life, so I tried to arrange it on my workbench. I wasn't sure how it would turn out, but I thought this was the design I wanted to go with. I'd like to take this time to say thanks to the sponsor of this video, Princess Auto. They're an awesome store only located here in Canada. Don't let the name fool you. They sell plenty of woodworking tools and metalworking tools, as well as chainsaws. I went over each of the stair treads, hunting for nails, screws, and other shrapnel embedded in them. A strong magnet is an effective tool for this. Once they were clean of debris, I brought them to the planer to reveal the grain and create parallel and flat faces. I then used one of these faces as reference on the jointer to create a square and flat edge. This edge is used as a guide on my bandsaw. I cut them to 13 inches wide, which would remove the worst spots from the treads. Cutting to 13 inches also left me with enough material to make legs for the shelves. One benefit of being in a shared shop is access to a full-size panel saw. It makes cross-cutting large pieces like this a breeze. This method of milling and cutting also creates 2 flat and perfectly equal pieces, which will add to the finished look, and they can resist a few good slaps. To clean up the center block, I use my Japanese plane to take off the rough spots on the edges. I then sanded the end grain, so once it is finished, it'll create a nice focal point between the 2 shelves. To mark the mortises, I used my workbench top as a reference since the piece of cedar was not perfectly uniform. I'm also very glad I caught this mistake. I cut along the outside lines with a fine curved saw to avoid tear out, then a mallet and chisel to hog out the center material. I used one of the offcuts of the cedar treads to test the mortise. Since it's the same thickness as the shelves are, the fit is meh. I'll see what it looks like with the full shelf. Pretty sexy if you ask me. I then cut and milled the offcuts so I could use them for legs. I want to make tapered and angled legs, which will attach to the bottom with a dovetail. I did not want to spend hours on these dovetails. I drew what I thought looked best at the right thickness and cut them on the bandsaw. If you go slow, it creates a clean surface. I used the dovetail to mark the pieces that will be mounted on the bottom of the shelf. Due to the nature of their angles, I had to clean them up with the chisel. Once again, the joint was meh, however I think it will look just fine once finished. To save myself some math, I turned the legs upside down and used the center block to mark the length. All of these cuts are made carefully and slowly on the bandsaw and cleaned up on the edge sander. I marked the line I wanted to use for the taper. Since I want these legs angled towards the corner, a taper towards the corner further accentuates the design feature. This is a very quick and effective way of cutting tapers. It avoids the dangers of the table saw and saves hours and time using a tapering jig. I like the legs a lot, however I think to reduce their presence, I need to add a taper like this as well. I followed these same methods on the legs for the shorter shelf and tried it all out to see what it would look like. To be honest, I wasn't sure about the design, but I do love the geometry, much better than the duck's mouth or giant Oreo. I took the legs off to sand, and when they're put back on, they will be glued into place to prevent wobble and rocking once they're back home. I brought the pieces back to my place to apply a finish. I used Watco Danish oil, which I find is fairly foolproof and finishes nicely, especially on end grain. It's now in place and I really like the look of it. It completely cleaned up that corner and opened up the room. I'd like to say thanks for watching. Feel free to check out my other videos if you like this one. See you next month.